Resulü fiyen hazat ervah şeriflerine Pirimiz Bilallah Habeş radıyallahu anh Efendimizin ve alel husus bu caminin bayisi ve bugüne kadar içerisinden gelmiş geçmiş imam mezzin kayımlarının ve kahve ehli ihvanın ervahı için Allah rızası için El Fatiha. Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. İnnallâhe ve melâketehu yusallûne alen nebi. Ya eyyühellezîne âmenû sallu aleyhi ve sellimû teslîmâ.
Allahümme salli ala seyyidina Muhammedin ve ala ali seyyidina Muhammed.
Allahu Ekber, Allahu Ekber. Allahu Ekber, Allahu Ekber. Eşhedü en la ilahe illallah. Eşhedü en la ilahe illallah. Eşhedü enne Muhammeden Resulullah. Eşhedü enne Muhammeden Resulullah. Hayya aleyhisselam. Hayya aleyhisselam. Hayya aleyhisselam. Hayya aleyhisselam. Allahu Ekber, Allahu Ekber. La ilahe illallah.
Elhamdülillah, elhamdülillah, elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin, ve salatu ve selamu ala Resulina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve sahbihi ecmain. Nahmedullahi Teala ve nestağfiru ve neşhedü en la ilahe illallah vahdehu la şerike lah ve neşhedü enne seyyidina Muhammedin abduhu ve habibuhu ve resuluhu sallallahu aleyhi ve ala alihi ve ezvacihi ve ashabihi tabi hulefe raşidil mahdin min ba'dih ve zelimati ala tahkik hususen minhum alemati hulefe resulü ala tahkik Ömer el-Mu'minin Hazreti Ebu Bekir, Ömer, Osman ve Ali ve ala bekir sahabe tabi'in rıdvanullah Teala aleyhim ecmain. Ya eyyuhel mu'minul hazirun ittakullah Teala ve te'innelmellezine tekavellezine hum muhsinun. Elhamdülillah, elhamdülillah, elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Ve salatu ve selamu ala seyyidina Muhammedin ala sahbihi ecmain. All praises are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the worlds, the Master of the Day of Judgment. All praises are due to Allah, who sent intelligence, faith, and modesty as gifts to Adam, alayhi salam, and his children. All praises are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who sent the most perfect example, the firm handhold, the light of guidance. Hazreti Sayyidina Rasulullah alayhi salatu wassalam. And all peace and blessings be upon the Holy Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, the master of the first and the last, the seal of prophethood, the intercessor of the day of judgment. All peace and blessings be upon he who is the most kind, most merciful. All peace and blessings be upon the Holy Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, the reflection of the light of Allah, the walking Quran. Ayyuhal mu'minun, O believers, O those who have said that they bear witness that there is none worthy of worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Holy Prophet ﷺ is his servant and messenger. O those who believe in Allah, who believe in his angels, who believe in his books, who believe in his prophets, who believe in the last day, who believe that the destiny, the good and the bad, comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. O believers who are trying to live for the sake of Allah, who are trying to live the sunnah of the Holy Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, who are running after the friends of Allah to be with them and associate with them. Welcome to you on this holiest of days that is holier than Eid, the Yawm al-Jummah. Why is this day holy? This day is holy because on this day, the Jamaat of Muslims, they come together. They're leaving their business, they're leaving their dunya, they're running to the Jami to take lessons of how to become better servants to their Lord, Allah Almighty. This is a holy day because even the angels and the jinns, they come together to the Jami. They close their books and they gather to listen to the Imam giving the khutbah. And in the golden days of Islam, in the Yawm al-Jummah, the khutbah was being read in the name of the Khalifa, in the name of the Sultan. And we are reading the name, the Jummah khutbah today, in the name of the Sultan al-Awliya, and the name of our Sultan, Sahib al-Saif, Shaykh Abdul Karim al-Kabrisi Rabbani. And we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let us to reach to the days when once again the khutbah is proclaimed and being read in the name of the shadow of Allah on the earth. We wait for that day when we will be reading the khutbah in the name of Hazrat Mahdi alayhi salam. O believers, Allah is saying in the Surah Al-A'raf, so tell the stories that perhaps they will think. Islam, it is the religion for the man who sits and reflects on the signs around him, on what has happened in the history, on what happened to earlier nations, to earlier prophets. The believers are those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them saying, the believers are the men who celebrate the praises of Allah, who are making zikr, standing, sitting, and lying down on their sides and contemplate the creation in the heavens and the earth, saying, O Lord, our Lord, you have not created all this for nothing. Glory be to you, and give us safety from the fire. And all believers who are thinking and reflecting and using your intelligence, know that we have just passed through a day that was one of the most difficult days in the history of Islam. To know that we have passed through a day when the nation of the Prophet ﷺ almost perished from the face of the earth. Know that we have passed through a day of great pain to the Holy Prophet. That we have passed through the day when the tooth of the Holy Prophet ﷺ was martyred from his blessed mouth. Yes, the 3rd of Shawwal, O believers, it is the day of the Battle of Uhud. The day when 70 of the companions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, they were martyred by the non-Muslims. For the ones who reflect on the signs, for the ones who take lessons from history, there is a great lesson in the Battle of Uhud. After the Battle of Badr, the unbelievers, they wanted to take their revenge for the deaths of their chiefs. 1 year after the Battle of Badr, the unbelievers made preparations with about 3,000 men, and they marched upon Mecca. And the Muslims, they marched upon Medina. And the Muslims who came to the battle, they were around 700. The same Muslims who before, 313 of them had defeated 1,000 of the kuffar. The Muslims had now become settled in Medina. They had won the last battle. Militarily, physically, they were stronger. The Muslims, they were better equipped. They were more ready to face the unbelievers. But on that day, a great harm fell on the Muslims. On that day, chaos and panic spread amongst the Muslims so much that the rumor began to spread that the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he was killed. And in that chaos, the unbelievers came very close to the Holy Prophet. The 10 companions who were being bodyguards to the Holy Prophet, each of them was killed. And because of the chaos of that day, some of the unbelievers came so close to the beloved of Allah that they were able to throw a rock at him, which cut his mouth open and his teeth became shahid on that day. They came so close that they struck the Holy Prophet with a sword on his shoulder. O believers, O those who reflect, how was it that the same Muslims who had defeated the unbelievers in Badr, they are now subjected to these conditions in Uhud? Because on that day, the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he positioned 50 archers on a hill, and he told them, giving them an order, use your arrows against the enemy cavalry. Keep the cavalry off our backs. As long as you hold your position, our rear from the back, it is safe. Do not leave this position. If you see us winning, do not join us. If you see us losing, do not come to help us. And in one riwayat he said, if you see us snatched into pieces by birds, do not leave this position of yours till I send for you. And if you see that we have defeated the enemy and march on them, do not desert your position until I send for you. And those archers, they played a very important role in guarding the main army of the Muslims on the day of Uhud. And as the battle began, and as it continued, it began to look like the Muslims, they had defeated the kuffar. And some of the Sahabis, they began to collect the spoils of war on the battlefield, the ganimat. And seeing this, 40 of those archers, they made a big mistake. They saw that the ganimat were being collected, and they ran away from their post. They deserted the post. They disobeyed the command of the Holy Prophet. They lost themselves in the moment. They became heedless, and they ran towards the war treasure. 40 of the archers, 40 Sahabis. And what happened? Khalid ibn Walid, sword of Islam, radiallahu an, he was not a Muslim at that time. And he was one of the commanders of the unbelievers. He saw that the mountain that had been strong, it became weak. So he took his horses and the cavalry, and they galloped towards the field where only moments before the Muslims, they were celebrating. And they began to kill the companions. And the victory that was in the hands of the Muslims, it almost turned into a defeat. Almost the Holy Prophet ﷺ was martyred. And so many of the Sahabis that were dearest, that were closest to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, they were martyred on that day. Hazrati Hamza radiallahu an, the lion of Allah, the most beloved uncle of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. He was martyred on that day by the spear of Washi. And the unbelievers, they mutilated his body on that day. They cut his body up and they took out his liver. Musab ibn Umair, one of the most beloved Sahabis to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he was martyred on that day. And on that day, only 10 Sahabis, they ran to defend the Holy Prophet with their bodies and their lives. Only 10 Sahabis, they were ready to sacrifice themselves for their Nabi, for their Prophet. They were putting their bodies in harm's way. They were bending down on the floor so Prophet ﷺ could stand on their backs to climb the hill. Hazrati Ubaidullah ibn al-Jarrah, he used his teeth to pull out the iron that had embedded itself into the Prophet's cheek until he lost his own 2 front teeth. O believers, ayyuhal mu'minun, those who claim to be under the banner of the Sahaba Kiram, who cried out, may my father and mother be sacrificed for you, Ya Rasulullah. What lesson must we take from this battle? What can we learn from that fateful day and apply it to our lives? The help of Allah and the victory of Allah, it comes only with absolute and unwavering obedience and submission to the word of the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet gave an order to the archers. If they obeyed, a full victory would have been given for Islam that day, but they disobeyed. And it was the disobedience that led to the darkness of that day. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying about the battle of Uhud in the Holy Quran, Allah did indeed fulfill His promise to you when you, with His permission, were about to defeat your enemy until you flinched, you backed down, and you fell to arguing about the order and disobeyed it after He brought you in the sight of the Ganimat, after He showed you the Ganimat which you desire. What made them to disobey? Ghaflat, heedlessness. In seeing that some other believers were collecting the Ganimat, they ran down so to get a share. And that ghaflat, it came from the love of dunya. The dunya, some shields and swords and armor became more precious to them than obedience to the word of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Those were Sahabis. We have no permission to criticize them. We have no permission to say that they did something and we are better than them. Because we need to look at ourselves. Because we need to look at them and to take them as an example. If we were in that situation, what would we do? Don't think that we're going to be any better than them. Do we have that disobedience inside of us? Do we have that ghaflat inside of us? Do we have that love of dunya inside of us? And understand the consequences of these diseases that is growing inside of our hearts. What were the consequences of the day of Uhud? The blood of the Prophet, the blood of the beloved of Allah was spilled on that day because of the mistakes of some. Whose names are written in honor from the day of Uhud? Those who with their lives, with their hearts, with their souls, with their bodies, they ran to sacrifice themselves for the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Those who jumped in the air to catch the arrows that were aimed at their Prophet. Our hearts should be burning to be like them. On that day of Uhud, the Holy Prophet ﷺ was in such a danger that he said, "Who will defend their messenger?" 5 companions cried out, "Ya Rasulullah, our lives are for you. We shall shield you." And amongst those 5 Sahabi was a companion named Hazrat Ziyad radiallahu anh. He took the arrows that were being aimed at the Prophet on his own body. He had so many arrows on his body that he fell on the earth. The Holy Prophet, seeing this, came close to Hazrat Ziyad and said, "Come toward me, Ya Ziyad." And Rasulullah ﷺ placed the head of Ziyad on his blessed foot above his sandal, while the spirit of Hazrat Ziyad left from this dunya. May the rains of blessings rain upon Hazrat Ziyad for eternity, and when we also leave this world as he left this world. O believers, our lives are not precious unless they are spent in the way of Allah and His Prophet and their beloved friends. O believers, we should not waste our lives on this dunya. Do not waste your lives for the cheap payment that this dunya is offering. Because the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasulullah ﷺ, they are better. O believers, we must turn our hearts towards the love of the Prophet and the awliya Allah, towards the love of our Shaykh, so that we can be close, so that we can be from those who are with him in this life and are with him for eternity in the life to come. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, lazi la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum wa atubu ilayh. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وعلى كل شيء قدير. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له